Perhaps I should provide more detail on what exactly the Conti were within the structure of Roman society. Many of these following chapters would be murkier if read without that context, and I am trying to be as straightforward as I can with this finalized chronicle. One common misconception is that we fell under the legions, but that is not strictly true. The organization of the Conti was ultimately decided by the Ministerium. The legion of a given province, in our case Legio Germanica, would supply speculatores for our protection in hostile realms. The speculatores were very highly skilled, usually, and specialized for the nature of that work separately from other career paths. Senior, high-ranking, experienced speculatores may have been selected as the Decanus for a Contus, but it was ultimately the Ministerium which made the selection, not the Legion. The Decanus would be chosen with 4 other speculatores, which rotated through other Conti. The Decanus was the only legionary we would spend any significant amount of time with. The professionals, Mechanist, Galenus, Navigator, and Alchemist, were each selected from their respective Professio Imperiums, while the Decanus was responsible for the protection of the members of the Contus. The Envoy was responsible for the execution of the mission itself. They were a check and balanced against each other. If they were ever at odds, the decision was left up to the popular vote among the professionals. This is why I was so concerned with forming a strong relationship with Decanus Fulvio Nucci. It would be critical to group cohesion, as well as our overall success. With that final task completed, I'm finally rid of my primum label. It's like a storm has lifted. I remember the stories of envoys who made a major mistake during one of those first missions. Getting demoted back down to apprentice for a few months is a humbling experience. I'm not sure if it builds better character, but I'm glad I did not have to find out. The task was much more trying than I expected, though. I learned much about the way Decanus Nucci operates and still find myself puzzled. I've never seen a legionary so completely unsettled to stand on Roman soil. His face is always downcast, his eyes drifting away from the path ahead of him. He stands tall, nearly 75 uncia barefoot, yet walks as though he is constantly pulling his sabaton away from swamp water. This way he carries himself seems to soften a bit when traveling by air, but the difference is slight. Stepping through an ostium, however, that changes the man. He eagerly pulls off his helmet to breathe deep in the alien atmosphere, as though he has been holding his breath up until then. His thumos fills with energy, and his face beams as if he is gazing at the sunrise. This is not just true of lush but uncivilized realms, where the world is an unmolested garden. Even in Eremus 1349, a world so wholly devoid of life that the Sahara has grown to cover the globe, where not a single oasis or tree stands among the dead sands. Even there, Nucci was more at peace than at home in the Republic. I asked Sophia about this, but she could not provide me an explanation. It's how he has always been since she was first brought into the Contus. It seems Nucci has been the Decanus of Contus Germanica 7 for over 2 decades. He long predates even McGlasson's commission. I can understand the feeling of wanderlust to some extent, but I am legitimately concerned that the Decanus has no concern for the possibility of being stranded or even killed in an alien realm. My predecessor was not the first to die in the Contus. While every expedition carries the risk of death, I fear his detachment will get all of us killed one day if we are not careful. Okay, so just speak in a normal tone and the clarion will pick it up.
You don't need to educate me on using a clarion. I've done this many times before.
How many times, exactly?
What, you think I care to keep count?
You don't know how many team members have died on your watch.
After 30 years in a legion, you end up seeing a lot of death. The bones all look the same in the end.
Yes, well, state your name and title, please.
Decanus Fluvio Capitanus Nucci of the Legario Germanica.
How long have you led Contus Germanica 7?
About 23 years.
Why did you choose to serve in a Contus rather than remain a full-time legionary?
For the same reason a citizen would want to become a legionary in the first place. Every smart soldier knows that this is going to be the last war. We don't face any real threat from the empires of this world. The tip of the spear reaches through those gateways. That is where the line must be drawn.
To fight for the safety of Rome?
Of course, for the glory of Rome.
Do you have any advice for me going forward?
Yes, don't get in my way. You'll stay alive so long as you don't stand between me and the monsters.
Fair enough. I now see that my task is to be the antidote to his poisonous outlook on life, so that any split decisions which come up are voted in my favor. Initially, I was surprised he survived this long. I'd evaluated his personality as, frankly, suicidal. But a violent encounter clarified that perspective in no uncertain terms. This occurred on our 8th mission in Eremus 1349. There was a jagged stone upthrust standing like an island above an ocean of sand. We were there to evaluate the minerals in the mound to see if it was worth establishing a new mine. Our alchemist, Ji Chung, was working away with his advanced instruments, while I took more routine readings of the sand itself. Earning the designation of Eremus meant that the planet appeared to be devoid of life. On previous expeditions, large swaths of the land were mapped with no visible plants, animals, or even bodies of water. Every new mission into a realm brings back new information to benefit us. It is the primary purpose of the Ministerium. Sometimes we aren't the one doing the discovering. As soon as one of our drills began diving into the rock face, the vibrations seemed to echo back to us several times stronger. Even when Chung powered down the drill, the vibrations continued. We all stepped closer to the Corvus, McGlasson readying the ship to quickly ascend. Decanus Nucci remained waiting on the edge of the sand. He pulled his helmet back on and pulled the mace off his back. Suddenly, the floor of sand was broken. A long, fleshy creature breached the surface, diving right towards him. With a practiced ease, the Decanus swung the mace in his right glove. The sharp, spiky head of the bludgeon made solid contact with the worm-like body, sending it down to slap against the sand. Bright orange blood dripped from the mace. The creature's dark gray body had been caved inward 3/4 of the way through. The tip of the appendage bent unnaturally along the bloody edge, breaking off as the lower part of the body slid back under the surface. By this point, the rest of us were watching from the port side of the Corvus. A second worm shot upward, sweeping low against the ground, trying to wrap itself around his legs. Again, Nucci brought his mace around, smashing down between its body and the sand. The tip of the creature spit as much orange blood as had been sprayed from the sides. It squirmed away from him, writhing in pain as the pieces once more were on the verge of separating. The earth below us began to shake once more. Several hundred cubits away, a much larger body rose out from beneath the sand, diving back below while heading in our direction. At this point, I was yelling at Nucci, demanding that he return to the ship. He remained in place facing the creature, which looked as though it were half a league long. It looked like it would take an Aquila Summa ship to take down the beast, but the Decanus stood there with his 3-cubit mace as though both worms were the same. Finally, McGlasson threatened to leave him behind, raising the legs of the ship. He finally relented and marched back up the slope. He leapt up and grabbed the handhold on the side of the fuselage, pulling himself over the railing. McGlasson levered the engine to full thrust. Lightning erupted in the dynamo, sending bright beams of light surging through the crystal channels of the ship like a racing heart. The lightning jolted into the Tallarite, which carried us upwards like the sandals of Hermes. The colossal worm breached the desert floor, closing in on us even at top speed. Decanus Nucci mounted the ballista, sending long Vulcan bolts straight into the creature's head. Each impact erupted in a fiery explosion, exposing bright orange sinew below the tough skin. On the 5th impact, the creature relented and halted its pursuit, allowing us to pass unimpeded through the gateway. Only Nucci seemed satisfied by the day's events. Our mission, as originally given, was a failure. We did not gain readings of any value from the few moments we had dug into the rocky mound. The only reason it was not deemed a failure by Elder Randolph was because of the information we had learned about the worm creatures, including their vast size discrepancies. If we had let the Decanus have his way, we probably would have been able to examine its internal biology after being swallowed alive. My only hope is that a few more experiences like that will plant the group firmly on my side of any issues that arise between us. Signed, Ulysses Adelbrecht, Envoy, Contus Germanica 7, 18 Julius 2403. How wrong I was. So very wrong.